Okay, I think we're live. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Q&A author interview. I'm really excited to have one of our camp counselors with us today. So if you don't know me, my name's Catherine. I'm the communications manager over at NaNoWriMo. My pronouns are she, her, or they, them. Right now we're running our Camp NaNoWriMo session. Some of you may already be working on your Camp NaNoWriMo projects, but if you haven't, you can go check it out at NaNoWriMo and make your projects and update them, update your word counts. So yeah, but part of what we do for Camp NaNoWriMo is that we get an awesome team of published authors to come to NaNoWriMo and give you guys advice while you're working on your camp projects. So today I am here with Autumn Kalquist, who is one of our camp counselors for the April session. Autumn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Autumn Kalquist. My pronouns are she, hers. And I am the founder of Nature Magick, which is a multimedia publishing company. I publish and license and create graphic designs, artwork, nature photography. I write science fiction and fantasy novels and short stories. And I also produce music. I'm a singer-songwriter music producer, and I like to write and release songs with all my books. So I'm a multi-platform storyteller pretty much.
That's so cool. So many artistic things all together. That's really awesome. And one of the cool things about Camp NaNoWriMo is that you can work on any kind of writing project. So if there's anybody out there who, I don't know, is maybe working on songwriting or some other kind of creative writing project, this is the time.
My two main series are Fractured Era, which is a sci-fi series, and Atlantis Academy, which is paranormal YA Academy fantasy. And I am actually working on a script for this Camp NaNoWriMo. I'm adapting it for television, and that is like a lot of fun. So that's what I decided to work on for April, but awesome. Yes, anything.
Yay. Cool. Well, I can't wait to hear more about it. So Autumn's gonna tell us a little bit about her experience with NaNoWriMo and some tips for trusting yourself and inspiring yourself and staying in the writing zone during the writing process. And then we're all going to do a writing prompt together about the middle of the webcast, and then at the end we'll have a Q&A with Autumn. So feel free as the webcast goes on, if you have any questions that come up, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we can ask them at the end or as they come up, whatever works best. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I wrote my first book in 2012, NaNoWriMo. One of my friends posted about it on Facebook, and I'd always wanted to write a book, but I was just writing like web content before that. And like I took all these career quizzes, and on every one of them, I would have said like, I'm not that creative, and which is kind of funny. And so I wrote the novel, and I was just in love. I was like entranced. I was like, what is this? Like, I have to do more of this. So I just went all out for like 18 months straight, and I spent hours learning about writing. I rewrote my book, I rewrote it again, I wrote more stuff, and I got to the point where finally I had something that I was ready to share. And I completely abandoned my other business that I had started, to which my family was like, what are you doing? But I was like, I have to be a writer. I am a fiction writer. So I did that, and it completely just transformed my life. Like, becoming a creator has totally transformed my life. Like, my dream was to work from home and be able to homeschool my daughter before I even had her, and to travel. And I'm looking back, 10 years, and that is what I've done. And it's because I became a creator, and that covers everything, all creative endeavors. I really hope that I can share advice or inspire or empower people to like embrace whatever their heart is telling them to create, like what gifts they came here to share, because I think it's a path to like transformation and finding like your happiest life. There will be some bumps, your life will probably change a bit, but yeah, that's what I'm doing here. But
great. I do want to say the first question in the chat was, is there anything creative you can't do?
Oh. Bake maybe.
Ooh, there we go. All right. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that out there. But
All right. Well, is there any other questions? Because I could talk probably for hours. I could write an entire book on like my philosophy of creating, and I have writing tips that are just basic, like how do you do this or that, but also, like how do I get myself to write, or we can just discuss, or someone can ask a question, I will answer.
Yeah, I think
anything here.
Yeah, and like I said, if anybody has questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I think to start out with, since a lot of people right now are like in the middle of working on their Camp NaNoWriMo projects, and also if people want to like say in the chat what they're working on right now, feel free to put that in there. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any advice for folks who I don't know. I find this a lot with my writing, where it's like you have this great, wonderful, creative idea, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, and then after like a week or so, you're like, oh man, your steam starts to run out a little bit, and I don't know, it gets to be a little bit harder to sit down and write. So I don't know if you have any suggestions or tips for people who like want to keep that creative steam going. But
that's a good question for this week. There's so many like tips and tricks. Some of them I wrote as part of the advice for the week, of course, like find what you're most excited about. But honestly, I worked with a time management coach this year, and something that he was able to help me understand is that I work in cycles. So I might have 10 to 12, 14 days where I am on fire and I am writing so many words, and then I seem to hit a wall for a little bit. And what he pointed out to me is then I shift over to writing a song or working on photography or whatever it is. And he always saw that would come back around and get back to it. So sometimes you do need to just switch. I know you're supposed to write every single day, but like maybe you do need to relax or refill the creative wall for a day or two. Don't panic. You have not failed. You have not failed. You could still come back to it. I make collages. I will, if I need inspiration, I have all these pictures on my floor right over here. I haven't finished yet. I'm going to make a collage for Atlantis Academy because I'm working on the second book and I just want one on my wall because I have one for Fractured Era. Obviously music playlists, and just finding what excites you. You have to rekindle that excitement. Sometimes if you feel stuck and you talk to someone you trust, nobody that's going to like tear down your idea, like just have them listen. As you're talking about your idea, like all this excitement will bubble up within you. Like they'll see it on your face and you'll feel it. My daughter, who's 11, last year, she got stuck because she's been doing NaNoWriMo. And I ran her through these questions like, what are you most excited about here? And it turned out it was the paranormal element. And she had kind of gone off and started writing about the Mean Girls element. And once she realized that, she brought it right back around and was back to writing real, like a lot. So I think that can help too, if that answers the question.
Yeah. Also, now I want to read your daughter's Mean Girls paranormal book.
Yeah, several books. Yeah, she's doing amazing at it. She's doing one right now. Yep.
Awesome.
I'm very proud of her.
We do have a few more questions in the chat. Writer Adventure asks, what tips do you have to start writing a book? So I guess like day one, sitting down in front of the blank page, like what do you do? How do you approach that?
Is this a question that is asking how do you get an idea, or is this how do you like battle the blank page?
Ooh, I don't know.
This person wants to clarify. I'm looking at the live chat here. Let me see what was that? It was
Writer Adventure asked, they just asked, what tips do you have to start writing a book? So
oh gosh, that's big. All right, well, I'll tell you, so not to take it a little dark, I'm sorry if it's a little dark, but I have had cancer twice. Once I had lymphoma as a teenager, and I also had breast cancer in 2018. Like it was a whole long ordeal. And at the end of my year of chemo, I was pretty much bedridden, and I was like, I need magic in my life. And that is what inspired me to write Atlantis Academy. And the way that I began writing the book is I went and sat on the couch. I turned on like some music that felt witchy to me because I knew I wanted like a magical story. And then on like a 12 by 12 paper, I wrote everything that excites me, like the history of Atlantis and this kind of character, and the Oregon coast and the California redwoods and sacred geometry and the four elements, like just everything. It was like everything that was going to be in this story. And as I did that for about an hour and a half, I started to see all these scenes. So like that's one way you can get going. You need to grab that first sort of snippet, that first scene that you're going to write, and then write it, because then the next one will arrive. But you kind of have to write it. Sometimes you won't be sent the next scene until you put the first one down.
That's the great and terrible part about writing is that you have to start doing it.
Have faith. Yes.
That actually that really ties in really well to another question that we got in the chat from Keela Fish that asks, how do you get through discouragement? I've been struggling to write for months due to health issues.
Kind of depends where the discouragement is coming from. Like I said, I had some health issues, and you be kind to yourself and love yourself and be gentle to yourself. Definitely don't be hard on yourself if you're not creating, because like if you're going through a lot, you're going through a lot. There's like all these emotions and things that you need to sort through and feel in order to open up again creatively. But sometimes creating also is a way of healing, oftentimes actually. So, I mean, you have to ask your heart, like, what do you want to create right now? Maybe it's not the thing you're trying to force yourself to make. Maybe you need to write a song. Maybe you're not even a songwriter. Maybe you need to write some poetry. Maybe you just need to write in your journal for now. Like, you need to kind of ask yourself, like, what do I need? Yes. If you were to like meditate on it, yes, it might be woo, but it absolutely works. If you were to like kind of calm yourself, center yourself, feel those feelings and go, what do I need to be working on? What is my heart saying will help me open back up again if I've been struggling creatively? And you'll be guided in the direction, and don't feel silly. Do it. Even if it's like telling you to like go color in a coloring book, do it. Like have fun, start to play again, and you'll find your creative juices will start to flow and you will be able to do that again. So that's how I deal with discouragement and that feeling of like failure if I'm not working on the project I think I should be working on.
I love that. I feel like just being kind to yourself is advice that I need in all aspects of my life, not just being creative.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. I did want to pick your brains a bit about world buildings, especially since you write sci-fi and fantasy. And we got a question in the chat from Ed Reed that says, tell us about how you organize your world building Bible, or do you use one?
I have like hundreds of thousands of words of notes on like my Fractured Air series, which it's not like organized, but I can go in there and look up ideas that I had for Atlantis Academy. I wrote that first and then I made myself, and it took me like 60 hours. I went back and read my whole book and I made myself make a world Bible because I knew that like I want to keep track of all of these spells and all of that. So I think it arises very organically for me. And then I have to go back and be like, what did I just do? Like, let me make sure I know, because now I got to write the next book and, continuity issues. So I tried to plot one book, and like when I have tried to control my creations, it has not gone well for me. The one book that I plotted and outlined thoroughly, I had to throw in the garbage. Like it felt so freeing. I threw it in the garbage. I had printed it out and I was like, goodbye. And I started over, and I'm so glad it was my defective book. Yes, it was called Defective. And it was originally, but no, it was beautiful. It's just that you can't always control the story. Like, let it unfold and discover what it is you're trying to say. If you're not sure yet, you'll find out by the end. Like, don't hold on too hard. Anyway, I don't think that was maybe that helpful for world building. It just kind of comes out.
That's I don't know. I feel like everybody has their different processes, and we call them planners or pantsers. So if you plan everything, or if you fly by the seat of your pants, so I'm guessing you're a pantser.
I think yes.
Nice. Steve Buck asked, do you have any major influences for your writing?
My favorite author, Kate Elliott was like one of my favorite authors growing up, or my favorite author. I read her series. It's all epic fantasy. I love her epic fantasy. She doesn't only write epic fantasy, but strangely, when I got into like reading or playing video games. I played Mass Effect when I was an adult. And then I started watching BSG and Stargate and like all of these sci-fi shows. And then the first thing I sat down to write was sci-fi. And I was like, what? Like, I have read hundreds of epic fantasy books and this is what comes out. But you know what? Don't question that. Like, what comes out is what the story that you need to tell. So just tell it. Like, but she was one of my favorites. And there's a book called Winter Fire by, I think, Cheryl Jordan. That was like my absolute favorite. I have a copy somewhere. I don't know if it's still in print, but I love that book.
Put it on my reading list. Also, I never played video games as a kid, and then I got into them at the beginning of the pandemic. I started playing Legend of Zelda, and so it's like Breath of the Wild, and so
yeah. And the RPGs were like, I really like the RPGs. I like the relationships. I like the story that was in it. I don't just like shooting games, but when I discovered like Mass Effect and Dragon Age and stuff, I was like, whoa, like I can get into this, you know. And I like Zelda on Nintendo, but anyway.
Yeah, that's great. Let's see. Annabelle Francisco asks, so I'm interested in starting my journey to writing stories, but I find myself in an imposter syndrome situation. So is that something you've ever had to deal with? Like, and if so, how do you manage it?
Well, the advice I had, I don't know if it actually came up yet this week, but it was be scared and do it anyway. I don't know if that one has gone out yet, but yeah, I don't want to say fake it till you make it. That is so, it's more like trust the creative impulse that's arising within you. Just trust it. Just be like as a child is, who just trusts it and scribbles on the paper. Like have fun with it and do it. And just trust the process. Like if you have that impulse, then you are a storyteller. Like you are a writer. You can trust that. I am telling you, you are a writer. If you feel that you want to write and you have stories inside of you, then you do. Okay, so you don't need to feel imposterish about that. What you may not have is like all the knowledge of the craft. Well, all of that can be learned later, but when you have to get going first. So tell your story, let it be a total mess. It's totally fine. The craft stuff helps you later to like clean it up so other people can read it, but it's the soul of your story will be there if you just let it pour out of you. So just get going, create a safe space to write in, hopefully if you can in your house, somewhere where you can close the door ideally, or at least be alone, and just make it feel safe and go. Just go and have fun. That's my advice.
You mentioning like writing and trusting the process like a little kid does. It makes me wonder, like, did you write when you were a kid? Like, did you make up stories and write them down?
I had really elaborate like pretend scenarios with all the neighborhood kids. Like, I don't know that they liked playing with me. I'm not sure. I didn't ask them. But I had trouble with like, there would be castles and all of that, you know, all just crazy scenarios. And I enjoyed it. When I was in like 4th grade, I started to write a book, but then I lost the notebook. I guess I'm still kind of old. Like, I don't think I had a computer yet to type on. My daughter, I'm like a little jealous. I'm like she could just fly with the keyboard, you know, and I'm like here erasing my sentence and rewriting it. And then I lost the notebook, you know, so I did not really write that much until it started to come out of me in 2012. It just started bubbling up and I couldn't stop once I started.
That's really cool. Oh man, maybe someday you'll find that notebook.
That'd be great. That'd be cool.
Oh my gosh, Keela Fish says they have 700 separate documents for world building. That's impressive.
Exciting too, though. So much stuff in there.
Yeah. Evaristo Ramos asks, how do you come up with your characters? Do you make them or do they just show up as your story evolves?
As far as I'm concerned, they exist already and I find them. I have some like, one of my processes is I lay on the floor and I used to stare at a light on my ceiling. Yes, I'm an eccentric creative, whatever. You all can be just like me. You all have this, okay? And now I have some lights I play on the ceiling. I zone out. I get into that sort of like theta type brainwave pattern, which is like the dreamlike daydream state, you know? And then I'm like, show me, like, let me see what happens next or whatever. And like characters appear and I'll be in their point of view and like entire scenes will show themselves to me. And like, I'm completely delighted and excited whenever they show up. I do not make up characters. I just find them and I don't want to make up characters. I want to find them. Like, that's why it's so fun. So, but you can make them up if you want. That's fine.
Yeah, I feel with my writing, I feel like there are some characters that, yeah, they already exist and I just like have to meet them and get to know them. And then there are some that I'm like, I don't know this about you. I'm just going to assign this thing to you. And maybe as I write, I'll find out whether that's right or wrong.
That's true. And you do sometimes, like, let's say somebody pops up and you don't know anything about them. Do not Google baby names. Don't stop writing. Just put them in brackets and be like, this person. Just give them a quick name and then walk on, because they will reveal themselves to you as you go. They will. Like, just say, I think they're this right now, but I'll wait till they tell me more. I have like a character that showed up that's very side. I think it's the same character. And I just have to go back and realize that, like, stuff like that happens sometimes, minor characters, but you could figure it out later.
Nice.
So what else?
One of my favorite authors, Robin McKinley, has this, she had a blog post once where she was talking about like, oh, I get the story council passes down ideas to me and I just transcribe them, and sometimes I'm worried that my characters will be mad that I got their names wrong or something. But
Yes, I feel that way. There's like a sort of a religion, or there is an entity that appeared in Atlantis Academy in like book 3, because I've written out to book 4 in my drafts, and I'm like, did I get this right? Is this spelling correct? And I'm just gonna have to settle on it because I don't know.
Yeah, that's great.
So let's see what else. I don't know if we have to move on to the other part, but I will answer the about the self-publishing versus for the hybrid. It's different for every author. I love running my business. I actually really love it. I kind of I love like picking out cover art and writing the copy, and I love coming up with, like, marketing sounds like a dirty word for a creative person, but it's about connecting with your people and showing them what you're creating that might mean something to them. So if you look at it that way, then it's a lot of fun. But not everybody loves that. So then maybe they want to go, trad. I would go hybrid if I was offered a publishing interest, I guess you'd say, and I sort of interviewed that person, and I was like, it wasn't a good fit. I felt like I want to do this by myself. I was very excited to wade into the waters, and it's gone well for me. But I don't really want to say like either way what anyone else should do, because I think it's very personal. So that's how I feel about that.
That's great. And I think that's a good thing to note too, because like, I don't know, I feel like for a lot of writers, it's like, oh yeah, traditional publishing's like holy grail or whatever. But it is so important to have that good connection with an agent or an editor. And if you don't have that, then it might seem like a great, opportunity, but maybe it's not the right one. So
that, yes. And also there's the aspect of, you don't need permission to share your story with the world. If for some reason you are knocking on doors and no one is responding, that does not mean that your story is not worth telling and not worth sharing. It just means that for some reason they're not resonating with it. Those few people, you do not need permission. And there are people who probably will find meaning in your story and connect with it. So that is when I think you make the decision of like, do I share this on my own? And I have felt it to be very empowering. I have an editor that I hire. I have cover designers that I hire, but again, you can go a hybrid route as well. But just know that that's another aspect, is that you don't need permission, which is kind of the message I want to share with people, that you were put here to share your gift with the world. Don't let anyone stop you from doing that just because your genre is not, on trend right now,
So I love that. That's great advice. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think so. We have a few more questions and I want to get to those later, but before we do that, because it is Camp NaNoWriMo and the whole point is, writing and reaching your writing goals this month, I want to make sure that we have some time to all write together. So I thought we could take 10 minutes and do a little writing prompt, a little writing sprint where you try to write down as many words as possible in the time. So Autumn, I think you have a prompt for us.
Yes. So one of my favorite things to do, especially if I'm stuck, is to pick like your villain, your antagonist, or maybe it's the love interest or just a side character, and talk to them. I want you to say, how you doing? And I want you to ask, like, what is your deepest, darkest secret that you never want anyone to find out, especially the people that you care about or love the most? And then say, what will happen if they find out? Because the best twists are discovered when you ask your side characters this. So, and if they don't want to talk to you, ask a different one. Just be like, fine, I'll come back to you later. Ask the next one, okay? If that happens.
Great. I'm just typing this up in the chat now.
Bob G, you have a voice. maybe they're not sensing it yet, but nobody can, you have a voice, keep trusting yourself and putting it forth, and it will come out. I wouldn't listen to anyone telling you that stuff. I'm telling you, you have a voice, and if they're not sensing it yet, they will shortly. Just keep going. Yeah.
Yay, thanks. All right, so I'm gonna set a timer for 10 minutes, and I put the Autumn's prompt in the chat here. So we'll write together for 10 minutes, and yeah, it's usually trying to write down as many words as you can, not thinking too hard about it, but just letting those words come and seeing what your character has to say to you. Yeah, and then at the end we'll talk about how that went. So, okay. Right, ready? Let's write together for 10 minutes, starting now. About 5 minutes left or halfway through. Got about 1 minute left. Okay, time is up for that writing sprint. So go ahead and wrap up what you're writing. If you want to, you can say in the chat how many words you got during that sprint, or if you want to share like which side character you talked to or what they told you, you can feel free to put that in the chat as well. Ooh, which character did you end up talking to, Autumn?
Well, for anyone who has read Atlantis Academy, I was talking to Caleb's foster father, and then he didn't give me much. So then I started talking to Vivian Wu, and she gave me much.
Excellent.
Who did you talk to?
I have a new. It's sort of new. I wrote like 30 pages of a novel a little while ago, and then I kind of took a break from it, and I came back to it, and I was like, oh no, this isn't working, and so I tore it all up, and now I'm piecing it back together. So talked to the main character's best friend, because all I knew is that she didn't want to be in a band, but then I was like, what do you really want? So yeah, I was trying to figure that out.
I probably should have. I didn't quite explain that you can continue to ask follow-up questions. I don't think I realized that I asked follow-up questions as I was doing it. It was like, wait, but why this and why that? And then they would answer. And I'm like, I probably should have let you know that sometimes they don't ramble. You have to like
I love that. That's good to know, though, if your character is somebody who rambles or needs to be prodded a little bit to answer the question.
Sometimes they don't know things because it's not for them to know. Only some other character knows it. So you ask them a question and they don't have an answer, so you have to ask it anyway. That's how it works for me.
Totally. We got a couple in the chat. Josh Liam got 81 words and Sarah got 286. Awesome. I'm always so impressed by people who can write quickly, because I am not a quick writer. So
I was writing in a text thing, so a notepad. So I don't know what I wrote, but I'm pretty good at rambling to myself when I get going.
We had a couple more questions in the chat too as well. I think Writer Adventure asked a little while ago, I always get stuck on trying to come up with an idea and then realize it's too like a show I watched. How do you come up with original ideas?
They have to come from your heart. So again, you are completely a unique human being that has never existed before and will never exist again. And all of the experiences you've ever had have made you just totally unique. So you can use the structure of a certain kind of, a certain kind of show. Like I was like, this is a YA Academy book. That means we go to magic school, high school or college. Like that's tropey, right? That already exists. But then all of my passions and the things that my heart cares about, I brought them to the world. And now it is completely unique because it's me. So if you just do that, you will make it your own. So don't worry about like, oh, this already exists kind of like this. No, like it's going to be yours. So go with it. If that you're hanging, it's a structure to hang things on. That's what tropes kind of are. That's what the genre sort of, that's what they are. Their starting point, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. It's like, you can always, I always feel like in my writing, if I'm really trying to do like an unexpected twist, like it never quite works out the way I want it to. But sometimes if I'm like, oh no, this character is going to do this, and maybe the audience will see it coming, but that's okay. Like, it's the way the story needs to unfold is the way it's going to unfold, I think.
Yes. It's really good when they just do something and you're like, but I didn't see that for you.
Mm-hmm.
I've had gnomes show up in book 2 of Atlantis Academy. Some of you have already read the first few chapters. When a gnome showed up, I was like, excuse you, like you were not part of this. This is not in my book. And then I'm like, whatever, it's there, okay. And I just let it. And it, like, I got to the end and I was like, oh my God. Oh, that's what we're doing here. I didn't know. Gnomes are elementals. Anyway,
I love that.
So go with it. Like, just roll with it. Just trust it. Just go. You'll understand at the end.
I want to use that as a writing prompt now. Like an unexpected gnome shows up in your story.
Or just something unexpected shows up. Your brain will make up something for you. And you'll be like, whoa, why?
kind of along those lines, we also had a question from Jennifer Patterson that asks, how are you able to translate what your characters do and say into writing? So I have great characters that pop up, but then when transposing dialogue, it doesn't seem to read correctly.
When I first started, everything was out of order. My character in Atlantis Academy has ADHD, which I have also been diagnosed with, which is part of why I loved writing her, because I finally wrote something that felt very familiar to me. And I sometimes would write things out of order, and I'd have to go back and be like, why isn't this flowing? That actually doesn't, the more I just intuitively write stream of consciousness, the better it reads. The more I try to use like planning or trying to make it fit, the worse it gets. So it could be that you might want to try. I found out in first person present, it's like so easy for me to write. I was like having to transpose first person present to like third person past for my other series, and it was very difficult. That could be something you're running into. Also, maybe your first draft dialogue is just a placeholder. Sometimes in the revision, you refine what they were trying to say, and that's where you might get a little more clever and stuff. But that first run through is just telling you how they feel, and that's good too. So don't really worry about if at first it's like messy, because it's supposed to be messy.
Yeah, great. I sometimes I read my dialogue out loud too, and because like it doesn't really hit you until you hear it, where you're like, wait, that's not a thing that an actual human being would say, you know?
Yeah, that is great advice. Yeah, especially I don't usually do it in first draft, but I absolutely do that. Like in the revision before I'm sending it to the editor, I'm reading it out loud to myself. Like, does this flow? That's great advice.
I saw a question in the chat from Christina asking about advice for nonfiction or memoir writers. And I'm going to put a link in the chat here. We actually have a whole page on the NaNoWriMo website that is dedicated to resources about writing nonfiction and memoir. So that's in the chat. You should definitely check that out. But I don't know if you have any advice on that, Autumn.
I have several nonfiction books that are kind of living in my Scrivener files right now, and I'm just letting them, as stuff bubbles up, I'm adding to them, and I think eventually there'll be a book, but unless I feel a pressing, urgent need to like finish one of them, it'll stay there until it's ready to be born, I guess. So you can check out those resources, because I'm just letting stuff on the page right now. I haven't gotten to the point of like organizing it or anything.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Cool. I'm scrolling through the chat. I think we've gotten all the questions that are there so far, but if you have any other questions that you want to ask Autumn while we have her here, feel free to pick her brain that way. I was curious to know a little bit more about, I know you talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but kind of just how, like, in what ways the different kinds of art that you do inform each other. Because like I started playing music a few years ago, and it was a thing that I had never expected that I would do. And then suddenly I'm in a band and writing songs. And so like the link between different kinds of creativity is something that I'm really interested in personally.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Like, so here I go from someone who thinks they're not creative. I write this book, and now all of a sudden, like, oof, like it just, like the floodgates open of all this random stuff that I didn't even know, which maybe that happened for you as well. I was actually in a girl group when I was in my 20s. I was like a pop R&B singer. That was actually my first like dream, my goal in life. And I didn't stay in Los Angeles. I ended up like moving on, and I was very sad, and I felt like I gave up my dream and all of that. And so, and I wanted to be a writer, but it was like in the distant future, like, oh, someday I'll write a book, right? And so now I've come around full circle, but I feel like I'm exploring the same themes, my inner emotions, inner conflicts, like the things that come out when you're creating, they're coming out across everything I do. There's like themes that come through on everything, and I think they do inform each other. I feel like some things maybe connect in my mind or connect for me when I'm working on, say, a song, and then somehow they show up later in my work in progress. Same if you follow your passions. If you're really interested in something and you don't know why, and you just go down that rabbit hole, it might pop up later and be really helpful, like in your work in progress, right? They're all deeply connected. I was trying to keep them separate. I kept jumping between all my different passions, and I'm like, I can't do this. So like this year I wrote to like my newsletter. Some of them may be here, people on my newsletter, and I was like, I want to get back to writing. My main business has become all of this nature photography and artwork and things. I really want to bring it together. I want to just be like, look, this is all the things that I create, because everybody's a complicated being, and we are multi-passionate, and we are creative. So yeah, that was kind of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, easier and more fulfilling to have them feed each other than trying to compartmentalize everything, right?
Yeah, you don't have to only do one thing, and you don't need permission to do it. And you can, if you sing, you're a singer. If you write, you're a writer. Like, if you make art, you're an artist. Like, nobody can bestow the title on you. Like, you are that. That is who you are. That is your gift. Like, it's arising within you. That's how you know it's your gift. And you might be like, oh, I need to work on it. It's not up to the level I dream it will be. It's still your gift, and you're being asked to use it because it becomes easier and easier the more you use it. So
I love that. Cool. And then I was also just curious. I know you touched on like a character that you really love to write, but I don't know. Do you have a favorite character? Can you pick that out from your books that you've written, and if so, why?
I guess Lyric is probably my favorite at the moment, because I'm actively writing her, and she sees the world kind of like I do. Just yeah, she's my favorite. I don't know. I also liked Anders. He was a character from my Defective series that I found him to be funny, and I enjoyed writing his scenes a lot. He was very irreverent, and I just enjoyed him. But they're all my favorite characters.
I know, can't choose one.
I know.
Awesome. Cool. I think we managed to get to all the questions in the chat. But if there are people who have questions or want to read your books, or like get in touch with you after the webcast, is there a good way that they can reach you or follow you? Or
yeah, I think if you go to autumnkalquist.com/Atlantis would be a good way to sign up for the newsletter. Have another sign up form for the Fractured Arrow readers. I recently started a Patreon and a Discord server because I wanted to just, interact with my readers more and get to know them better and see what they're working on. And I have also my Facebook reader group. So I'm interacting a lot more in all of those places. We do writing sprints in my Discord server. I know there's lots of NaNoWriMo Discord servers as well, but we've been doing those for months, which I find very motivating, positive peer pressure sort of to show up. But yes, that is the link. Yeah. If anyone has any other questions, or I can talk about any other topic if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there any, I don't know, I when I interview authors, I often like to ask, is there any sort of like last piece of advice that you want to leave people with, or something that you have heard in your life that has been particularly helpful to you?
Yeah, I want you guys to separate the act of creation from sharing the creation. I want you to understand, like, you may not understand it when you're first starting, especially I sure didn't. I wish I had understood. You do have to experience it, but there is this beautiful, inherent, amazing, magical value in following your heart and creating what it is telling you to create. And it is completely separate from the value that will be placed on your story or whatever once you share it. So a lot of people, they're so intertwined that it'll be like, no one's going to want to read this, or I suck at this, or what if whatever your inner critic is saying, and you never finish it, you never do it, because it's so, you're like, well, what's the point of doing it if I'm not going to share it? Like, what if it's garbage? The point is that your heart is guiding you along a path that not only helps you discover and hone the gifts that you came here with, but you are also going to discover things you didn't know about yourself. You're going to heal old wounds that maybe you didn't even know were there. You're going to transform yourself. Like, it is amazing what's going to happen. So like the value in becoming a creator, because things happen all the time in your life and you maybe feel like they're just happening to you. But when you decide like, I'm not just a consumer, or I'm not just having life happen to me, I am a creator, you begin to co-create your life with some kind of magic that you didn't even know existed. And maybe I sound woo about this, but if you start doing it, you will start experiencing it. So don't listen to anyone who tells you negative stuff about why you shouldn't spend time creating. It is so valuable and will change your life. Worry about it later, what you're going to do with that thing when it's done. And don't ask for any criticism of your baby while it's still in the crib, okay? Like, just love on it and let it become what it's going to become before you ask for anybody's feedback. You need to know it first. So yes, that's my final bit of advice.
Thank you so much. That's such great advice. I really love it. So thank you. It was so wonderful to have you here and to have you answering all these writing questions and sharing your advice and your expertise with us. So yeah,
thanks for having me. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Awesome.
And if anyone has any questions, or you're watching this like later today, if you're not in this time zone, actually, if you are in this time zone and you're working, I told my readers, like, you can add comments under the video if you want. I will check back later tonight and I will answer more if there's any that I missed. So go ahead and do that and I will check back.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, if you haven't already made your Camp NaNoWriMo project, or if you're in the middle of writing it, make sure you update your word counts there. And we'll be sharing more of Autumn's great advice through the Camp Nano website, through the mailing system there and on our social media. So you can check that out later this week. And yeah, it was so wonderful to come together and write with you all and talk about writing. And thank you so much for sharing.
Yes, thanks for having me. And thanks everyone who asked me questions.
All right, bye everyone. We will